Story name: The Tale of the Curious Cat and the Secret Garden. Once upon a time, in a small village nestled between rolling hills and a sparkling river, there lived a curious cat named Whiskers. Whiskers was no ordinary cat. He had a sleek coat of fur as black as midnight, with a small white patch on his chest that looked like a tiny star. His bright green eyes twinkled with curiosity, always searching for something new and exciting. Whiskers lived with an old woman named Mrs. Maple. She was kind and gentle, always leaving out a saucer of milk and a warm bed by the fire for Whiskers. But as much as Whiskers loved his cozy home, he often found himself dreaming of adventures beyond the garden gate. One sunny afternoon, while Mrs. Maple was napping, Whiskers decided to explore the village. He slipped through the cat flap and padded down the cobblestone streets, his tail twitching with excitement. The village was bustling with activity. Children were playing, shopkeepers were selling their goods, and the smell of freshly baked bread filled the air. Whiskers wandered through the market, past the bakery, and down a narrow alleyway he had never noticed before. At the end of the alley was an old, rusty gate, covered in ivy. The gate was slightly ajar, and through the gap, Whiskers could see a garden unlike any he had ever seen. The garden was filled with vibrant flowers of every color imaginable. There were roses as red as rubies, daisies as white as snow, and tulips that swayed gently in the breeze. In the center of the garden stood a large oak tree with branches that stretched up to the sky. Underneath the tree was a stone bench, and sitting on the bench was a little girl with golden hair. Curious as ever, Whiskers squeezed through the gate and approached the girl. She looked up from the book she was reading and smiled when she saw Whiskers. "Hello, little cat," the girl said in a soft voice. "My name is Lily. This is my secret garden. Would you like to explore it with me?" Whiskers meowed in agreement, and together they began to explore the garden. They walked along the winding paths, past bubbling fountains and statues of angels. Everywhere they went, there were birds singing and butterflies fluttering about. Lily told Whiskers that the garden was magical. It had been created by her grandmother, who had loved plants and flowers more than anything in the world. Her grandmother had passed away many years ago, but before she died, she had told Lily about the garden and how to find it. It was hidden from the rest of the world, a place where Lily could escape and read her books in peace. As the sun began to set, the garden seemed to glow with a golden light. Lily and Whiskers sat down on the bench under the oak tree and watched the fireflies dance around them. "I come here every day after school," Lily said, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's my favorite place in the whole world." Whiskers purred contentedly, feeling like he had found something special too. The garden was a place where time seemed to stand still, where the worries of the world melted away, and all that mattered were the simple joys of nature. From that day on, Whiskers visited the secret garden every afternoon. He and Lily became the best of friends, exploring every corner of the garden and discovering new wonders each day. Sometimes they would find a hidden grove of trees, other times a patch of flowers that had just bloomed. Every visit was a new adventure, and Whiskers loved every moment of it. One day, as they were sitting under the oak tree, Lily turned to Whiskers with a thoughtful expression on her face. "I think it's time we share the garden with others," she said. "My grandmother loved it so much, and I think she would want other people to enjoy it too." Whiskers meowed in agreement. The garden was too beautiful to keep hidden forever. So the next day, Lily invited the children from the village to come and see the secret garden. At first, they were amazed by its beauty, just as Whiskers had been. They played games, picked flowers, and laughed as they ran through the paths. Whiskers watched from his favorite spot under the oak tree, happy to see the garden filled with so much joy. The garden was no longer a secret, but that didn't make it any less special. In fact, it became even more magical as more people came to visit. The villagers took care of the garden, planting new flowers, trimming the hedges, and making sure it stayed as beautiful as Lily's grandmother had intended. Whiskers continued to visit the garden every day, but now he had even more friends to play with. He still loved his adventures, but he also loved returning to Mrs. Maple's warm home each night, knowing that the garden was safe and full of life. And so, the garden became a cherished part of the village, a place where people came to relax, to read, and to enjoy the beauty of nature. It was a place where friendships were made, where memories were created, and where a curious cat named Whiskers had found a home. As the years passed, Lily grew up, but she never forgot the garden or the adventures she had shared with Whiskers. And every time she visited, she would find Whiskers there, waiting for her under the oak tree, ready for another day of exploration and fun. And so, the tale of the curious cat and the secret garden became a legend in the village, passed down from generation to generation, a reminder that sometimes the most magical places are the ones we discover when we least expect it. The end.